Welcome to the webcast, Securing Data in the Age of GenAI. My name is Susan Stockner, and I'll be your host for today's session. Generative AI is reshaping our world in real time, but as adoption accelerates, enterprises are increasingly concerned about the risk it poses to their most sensitive data. With me today are two experts on this topic, Karthik Krishnan, who is founder and CEO at Concentric AI, and Paul Pak, who's managing director, CISO, and head of information governance at Jennison Associates, and a Concentric AI customer. Paul, we'll start things off with you. Can you tell us a little bit about your role in Jennison Associates and your journey with Concentric AI?
Sure, no, absolutely. Thank you, Susan. So about 3 years ago, right around this time, I was at a emerging technology forum with a lot of the investment management firms, and one of the key things that had actually, as we were at the forum, everyone was getting buzzed and attacked by all these notices from Microsoft as well as others, where again, generative AI was being introduced. And so 3 years ago, literally, I think months after that, was the first kind of privacy or data incident that occurred. One of the mobile device manufacturers, not Apple, was using ChatGPT, where people didn't even know what ChatGPT was at that point. And they had some developers had actually uploaded all these sensitive files, confidential information, board minutes, and all these data sets that were, again, sensitive and also a breach from a privacy perspective for this company. As a result, the wheel started spinning in my head and saying, boy, if we don't do something now, again, we'll suffer the same type of incident. So we went on kind of a tear. So I had my team start going and reaching out to all of our current cybersecurity vendors as well as our privacy vendors to try to, again, find some sort of solution that would, again, allow us to monitor as well as to protect our data with these new generative AI agents as well as solutions that were being provided. The first thing I did, though, was actually contact our chief legal officer and make sure that we were in line to actually block all of the Gen AI, as many firms did with this onslaught of generative AI solutions. The overall review that we conducted of our current vendors, the answer was all a resounding no. We don't have anything. Nothing is in our current pipeline. We'll work on it. So fast forward to later last year, and having again seen Concentric and some of the solutions that they were providing, we went to Karthik and said, "Are you looking at this?" And it was with a reassuring, "Yes, we are, and yes, we'll have something." So over the last several months, we've been working hand in hand with Karthik to, again, look at the solution, obviously from the base solution that Concentric had, but then with what was in the pipeline. And literally, it was exactly what we wanted from a solution to allow our firm as well as our employees to utilize all the benefits of a generative AI solution or solutions, but again, protecting the firm and its data from potential, again, leaks or data, again, accidents, as we call them, from being leaked out into the solutions. So again, with Karthik's help and his vision, which we've recently have seen, and he's again provided a demonstration of that solution. It's, as I said, it's exactly what we need. Our current solution was a very manual process. So every time someone went to a GenAI, again, approved GenAI site who was an approved user, we would actually have to, again, review what they had uploaded, potentially what they put into the input for those solutions. This is not scalable. It's not something that we can continue from monitoring. And the solution that Karthik and Concentric AI has developed is absolutely our solution, and I'm sure many other firms and other companies will benefit from that.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for your kind words. Really appreciate that. Good afternoon, everybody. Karthik Krishnan. I'm the founder and CEO of Concentric AI. We are a data security governance company that helps enterprises discover, monitor, and protect enterprise data. And specifically, we use AI to help customers contextually understand the data, understand where there's risk against that data, and help remediate and reduce risk and prevent data loss. Generative AI is definitely reshaping the data security world. Everything from public Gen AI usage to generative AI assistants to AI workloads that enterprises are looking at. And so we are at the forefront of helping enterprises essentially make sure that they can safely deploy their generative AI applications without necessarily compromising on their data security profile. And we'll talk about that more as we go forward during this webinar. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, Karthik, was any cyber incident is, from our perspective, any time there's an event, we always ask, or always ask the team, like, what data was accessed, what data was, potentially accessed, and then ultimately, if it's an actual incident, it'd be what data was exfiltrated. And so, in the same context of generative AI, the solution is to review what data, and Concentric had again, from what we were evaluating, Concentric originally was the data classification and having the labeling of data, but what has expanded, I think, is literally being able to monitor that data, going out externally.
Yeah, I think you're at the forefront of generative AI, and I'm sure you have a lot of scars from
Yeah.
some of what you've been looking at, Paul. So what are, as you've been looking at this, given it's been sounds like a 3-year journey at this point, what are some of the challenges that you think enterprises should consider as they are rolling out generative AI and as their employees are starting to use generative AI? And based on your learnings, what are some of the things that enterprises maybe underestimate and things that they should be considering as they're looking at a safe adoption of generative AI, if you will?
Sure. I think it always goes back to the business use case. So I think that's where knowing what your employees are going to be doing, and again, having the ability to monitor, but not to be too big brotherish, again, just to monitor, and again, have the options though, where if the business use case is with like a Perplexity or with Microsoft Copilot or some other solution, it's to be able to, again, monitor and then have that ability to, hey, I'm going to upload certain other data elements or data that's part of my approved request, but it may contain something sensitive that I didn't know about. And so the oopses is what we're trying to avoid. And I think that's where, again, what we've seen with Concentric is that ability to monitor, but again, get permission, versus before you make that oops, yeah, there's that ability to request to upload something where it just needs a quick approval, and then you can upload that data. Right now, there's nothing, it's just absolutely, if there's an oops, there's an oops, and you'll have to deal with the ramifications of contacting your clients and letting them know that some certain data elements were again accidentally uploaded. And we've seen so many cases of this, and where the initial reaction was, hey, let's jump into this generative AI thing and let's have fun with it, and let's just upload all these documents. But we've seen also the ramifications of, again, uploading just anything that an employee wants to, which is, again, loss of the data, going out to clients, going to boards, explaining, we had this breach because, again, there were no controls, there was no monitoring, but yet all this data had now been released out to these generative AI solutions.
So just stepping back a bit for Jennison itself, what was the fundamental driver that caused you guys to go down this path? Why you could have just said no generative AI at all. We're going to completely block it. We're going to make sure that nobody's doing anything because the safest secure mode is no access at all to any of these things, right? So what was the driver for it, and how did you then go from there to then thinking about some of the security elements?
Sure. Sure. The driver definitely was the business. The speed to market, again, having the data, having analyses done, and having, again, kind of what we call, like, from a perplexity standpoint, a Google search on steroids. Being able to really hone in on certain, again, data elements. That is the primary reason. So we enacted our own AI policy. We have a governance structure. Any solution needs to go through an approval process. And what we continue to do, though, is, again, evaluate, whether or not the solutions are meeting those business requirements. And as we do, that is something that's already, we've seen the impact of an approved solution truly benefiting the business rationales, where, again, speed to market, again, being able to make quicker decisions, and again, doing research a lot quicker than what used to take manual processes many weeks is now down to several seconds sometimes.
Yeah, as you were talking, I was thinking about this, right? Every technology transition, productivity always trumps security.
Right, exactly.
Cloud, mobile, wireless, and generative AI is, of course, a on steroid step function, if you will, for what it could mean from enabling productivity for employees. Then the question is, security now has to keep up to make sure that you're able to safely enable these things. Now, in your case, are you looking at the entire spectrum, everything from, say, public Gen AI usage to even things like Gen AI assistants like Copilot or other
Right.
tools within the enterprise, to maybe even down the road looking at AI workloads and so on? Are you looking at in its end state, is it pretty much the entire gamut of applications as you think about it?
Yes, exactly. And that's exactly why I think when we had earlier discussed, it's knowing what's not just at the prompt, for these solutions, but also the uploads, and being able to monitor specifically for that, and knowing, again, what data is being used. And again, to ensure the no oopses or no accidents that occur, pretty much every day now, from what we've seen in the headlines. Yeah.
It's actually data leakage through, for example, public generative AI is a lot more insidious than even just a straightforward leakage, right? Because now the models can actually train on your data, which makes it doubly dangerous in that once the models have trained on your data, they never forget. And so,
Right, exactly, right.
yeah, and now your data is out in the wild. And so I think some of these controls now become front and center as you think about it. So look, so let's so where are you at in this journey, both from a application rollout as well as a security rollout? And where do you see this all ending up as you are deploying this and making sure that you can do this in a safe manner across your entire enterprise?
So definitely, as we have approved certain products already. So the Perplexities, the Microsoft Copilots, ChatGPT, like, again, that's where we're already at, again, enabling those solutions. But again, the monitoring right now and until we go into production is manual. It's just manual to review each and every time someone's checking or uploading. And again, it's a lot of it's from a security perspective, it's several systems trying to, again, look at different panels, and my poor team who has to look at all that, and every time we get alerted is to review all that. It's just not scalable. Honestly, as we're deploying this, our pilot groups for solutions was kept at a minimum, again, but as we're deploying firm wide, that will just again is unmanageable without a solution in place.
Got it. And how many, like, if as you sort of so as you have been sort of thinking about this itself, so just curious, like initially you started out looking at Concentric AI as more of a traditional data security governance product.
Right.
How do you see yourself sort of expanding that out into some of the more generative AI application usage, monitoring, and data protection, if you will?
I mean, honestly, what we've seen already is this will be our, again, solution for being able to monitor as well as protect the firm's information from an AI perspective, but also from a general data loss prevention perspective. So obviously, we have our own data loss prevention program, but it may, again, we're reevaluating to see whether or not it could be the entire program for us, where it's from start to finish. We have several solutions in place, but it seems, again, Concentric seems to have kind of tidied up the entire gamut of a DLP program, and absolutely inclusive of AI, generative AI as well. So again, we're looking at other solutions that you've already taken care of, that we have covered by other vendors.
Yeah, I remember when we talked, you were talking about the notion of, context-aware data protection, right?
That's right.
The sensitive data, the categories and classes of data that you might have, you want to be able to make sure that your DLP program takes into account that. For example, allowing for your employees to be able to upload relatively benign content if it's to generative AI applications or otherwise, but keep out, for example, your sensitive financial data or other sorts of records that you might care about. And so how do you bring that tie in where the context-aware data understanding, data classification, data categorization that you can do can tie back to also how your employees are interacting with, for example, public GenAI applications?
That's right. And then the beauty of it also is, in the product, is the data mapping and the flow. So that, and from a privacy perspective, again, firms with personal information or personal identifiable information, PII, anything, even PHI, you have already now a solution where you can kind of map the data. I know most firms are just doing this on spreadsheets where they're saying, data goes from this solution to another one, and but doing it again from an automated fashion and to be able to visualize it, and also map that data as required by many of the privacy regulations. That also was an added benefit, because it's not just where your data is, but it's also where it's flowing. And then from a, again, privacy perspective, being able to respond to individuals when there are requests for where their data is. So again, another added benefit where we were able to see the true power of Concentric AI at work.
Got it. And so we recently announced a couple of acquisitions. One was a company called Swift Security, and the other was a company called Acante. And a little bit about just the purpose of why we did this. We looked at generative AI is quickly bringing data security to the front and center, because without an effective data security governance program, whether it is if you're using generative AI assistants, for example, now, a CEO's response shouldn't look the same as a junior employee who joined yesterday, right? You have to apply the right sets of context as you are responding back. And so in some ways, data security governance acts as that human reasoning system that allows you to apply the relevant set of context as you're responding to people. And so we already have solutions in place to help you from a generative AI assistant rollouts, where we can help you with a classification structure or permission structure to help you make sure that you've got the appropriate level of access control enabled as a necessary first step to generative AI assistant rollouts. But then when we step back, we look broadly at all of the generative AI application use cases for enterprises, and we saw a few gaps. One was in public Gen AI usage, which is, we were doing a lot of very rich categorization and contextual understanding of data. The question was, can we bring that to also being able to provide dynamic monitoring and protection as employees are interacting with ChatGPT or Perplexity or public Gen AI tools? And so that's why we actually acquired Swift to bring this notion of, what we call context-aware DLP to the market. And then the other area was Acante, which was a data governance solution that helps you implement governance for proprietary AI workloads if you were implementing that within your enterprise. Everything from making sure that you're curating data before you're training the models, to also now acting as that data governance layer as you are serving up requests. If you have, for example, a RAG architecture. So we wanted to be the sort of a single stop data security governance platform for all the generative AI applications, from public Gen AI usage, being able to monitor, control, block at a context aware layer, to generative AI assistance, to also things like AI workloads. So as you think about this, do you see all of these things applying to you from a security control standpoint? And how do you see this? How do you sort of phase this across your environment as you think about all of these things getting rolled out and the security consequences that they may present?
No, definitely. So absolutely, the Swift Security acquisition was just tremendous, because that's what we've been looking for the last 3 years, to make sure that our data got from a data security perspective. We're not going back to our clients saying, "Oops, we got your data somewhere. One of our employees, sorry, the hand smack," because again, this is very unique. Is that you can't delete the data. You can't go out to ChatGPT or OpenAI and say, "Hey, can you delete the data for us?" And I think that's one of the first lessons that we learned, 3 years ago, was that there's no way to do it. Once it's in, it's in. And so I think that's where this challenge is a lot different, and that's why I firmly believe that with Swift Security, having that again, the monitoring, again from an AI perspective, to even know who your employees are, and to again, be able to have the shifting data loss prevention models based off of that. The content were definitely something, again, I think is more for the future for us in development, but I know that there's larger players out there who have created their own generative AI solutions. And anyone who's been monitoring the recent legislation, both in the EU with the EU AI Act, which is all about development of AI, as well as the more domestic ones here in the US. I mean, Colorado, Texas, all have these new state laws with respect to generative AI. So I definitely feel that Acante is something that will be required in the future. But most important, and I think more for the present term and present risks right now, is the Swift part of it.
Makes sense. Thank you, Paul. This has been super illuminating. So I know that you're smack dab in the middle of the journey, and you probably,
Yes.
you probably have a lot of lessons to essentially be able to guide a whole bunch of people who potentially, may be looking to people such as yourselves for guidance on how to sort of safely navigate this particular journey. So really appreciate your insights. Susan, I'm going to turn it over back to you.
Great, thank you. I have just a couple of questions to ask just before we wrap up. But one is for Paul, and that's, if there was one myth about data security or Gen AI governance that you'd like to bust today, what would that be?
That you can't monitor it, your employees' usage of it. I've seen it. And it's in Concentric. The myth about nobody providing any sort of solution, which we've lived for about 2.5 years, that's just been busted.
Got it. Karthik, do you have anything that you'd like to add on that?
I have nothing, Paul said it perfectly. I mean, operationalizing data security doesn't have to be hard. I think it has been too hard for too long. It doesn't have to be. I think there are technologies today that can really help you discover, monitor, and protect your data without needing large teams, without needing just a huge amount of manual effort and labor that a lot of enterprises have traditionally had to essentially put into this. And so it's a whole lot easier today than it has ever been. And for something as critical as data, which remains the most vulnerable threat surface, as Paul was saying, like everything that you do, ransomware, malware, whether it's generative AI application rollouts, it's all about your data. And so, given the importance of that, it should not be the most vulnerable and riskiest threat surface that it is today.
And Karthik, I know you asked this of Paul a little bit earlier, but what advice would you give to other organizations that are starting their Gen AI journey, like right after we get off this webcast?
Yeah, I think as you look at generative AI, it tends to have multiple use cases for enterprises, from how employees are interacting with public Gen AI applications, what we call shadow Gen AI, to manage Gen AI, like for example, Copilot or Gemini or even like ChatGPT Enterprise, or if you're building any sort of AI workloads with RAG architectures. Data security governance almost becomes an essential first step. Without having a good governance program in place, it's really impossible to effectively roll these things out while making sure that your data doesn't end up spilling all over the place. And so yeah, my advice is, data security almost has to go hand in hand as an essential first step for a meaningful and secure rollout, regardless of whether you're concerned about public Gen AI applications or generative AI assistants, or you're trying to build some sort of proprietary AI workloads on your own.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you, Karthik, and thank you, Paul, especially you, Paul, for sharing your story with us today, and to the audience for joining us. If you'd like to see Concentric AI's end-to-end governance solution in action, please click the link in the chat or scan the QR code that you see on the screen now. Thanks again for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Paul. I really appreciate it.
Great, thank you.